very simply put, the way the system works right now, it costs more than if we had Medicare for all.
Why is that?
Because we have an unnecessary for-profit middleman that essentially acts like a mafia. So what we're saying is, I'm going to remove that mafia from around your neck, and you're going to, it's basically...
What is that mafia you're referring to?
That mafia is the for-profit health insurance company. So they have to take their cut as the middleman between you and your doctor. Okay? If we just remove that, have the government at no profit margin be the single insurer, that's what a single payer means, they're the single insurer, then we actually end up saving $5 trillion over the course of 10 years. And that's not Kyle Kulinski talking. That's a detailed study from the University of Massachusetts Amherst.
Now,
talking.
That's a liberal fucking place.
In today's video, Kyle Kulinski absolutely destroys Joe Rogan in a heated debate about Medicare. Joe came in with the usual skepticism, worrying about costs, government efficiency, and the classic, but who's gonna pay for it? But Kyle brought the fire. In just a few minutes, he broke down the entire argument with clarity, facts, and zero BS. He laid it out plain. We're already spending more per capita on healthcare than countries with universal systems, and getting worse outcomes. People are going bankrupt over basic care, dying because they can't afford insulin, and we still have tens of millions uninsured. Kyle shut down the myth that Medicare for all is some radical idea and reminded us it's actually the global standard. So let's dive in and watch how Kyle Kulinski shuts down Joe Rogan in this heated debate.
So what do you do when you have all these insurance companies? Like, what happens to those insurance companies? What happens to all those jobs? What happens to all that money?
The insurance companies go away.
Go away. I mean,
they go away.
Businesses go under. So you kill those businesses.
If I say you're not allowed to cut your lawn, okay, unless, let's say the guy wants to charge you $100.
Right.
I say, no, Joe, I'm going to be the one who pays the person who cuts your lawn. You have to give me $200.
Okay.
So if somebody came along and said, no, whoa. Hey, middleman guy, we're going to get rid of you. And Joe, you want to cut your lawn? Give that guy $100 and you're all set. Wouldn't you say, well, that makes sense. The middleman guy, he can piss off. Because that's the way I look at it. The reality is when people argue for choice in health insurance, look at it like this. Would you say, hey, man, don't take away my choice when it comes to picking my firefighter? People are like, what do you mean? No, the way it works is there's a fire and you get help. End of discussion. They will come. You don't say, whoa, I want to pick my fire department. Well, this is the same thing with healthcare. The idea, you're going to be able to pick your doctor. That's perfectly fine.
Okay.
But the idea of you'll have your choice between insurance companies, that's like saying, pick which, do you want the Irish mafia ripping you off or the Italian mafia ripping you off or the Jewish mafia ripping you off? Go ahead. I'm giving you choice.
Right.
In some areas, the idea of choice is fundamentally absurd. It's like saying, well, let's shut off the road system. Instead of being public, let's have it privately run, and you could make a left on that road, make a left on that road, or make a right on that road. Don't take away my choice of road. I want to pay for that one or that one or that one. No, it's all there. It's all free at the point of service. And this is the whole idea of having a public utility. There's the whole idea of having something that's off the table in a civilized society.
Right.
And again, what the studies show is it actually saves money. So the real question people should be asking is, how can we afford to keep having the system that we have right now? Because we pay more than the rest of the developed world, and we have 30 to 45,000 Americans that die every year because they don't have access to basic health care, and we have 500,000 people who go bankrupt as a result of medical bills.
Now, Joe, as usual, played the curious skeptic. He wasn't aggressive, but he definitely leaned into that typical how are we gonna pay for it line like many MAGA-adjacent voices do. But Kyle, he absolutely owned the moment. He broke it down in plain language. We already spend more on our current healthcare system than we would under Medicare for all. That's not an opinion, it's backed by data from places like the University of Massachusetts Amherst and other health economists across the board. And Kyle made a great analogy, comparing the private insurance system to a greedy middleman mafia. Right now, private insurers sit between you and your doctor, skimming profit off the top while doing absolutely nothing to improve your care. Kyle's point, take them out of the equation, let the government act as the single non-profit insurer, and boom, you save trillions over a decade while covering everyone. That's not just compassionate, it's efficient. He also crushed the whole choice talking point. People think they're choosing between plans, but what they're really choosing is which insurance company will deny your claim this year. Kyle compared it to which mafia shakes you down. Spot on. And his point about firefighters, nailed it. You don't shop around for fire protection, you just get it. Healthcare should work the same way. Universal, guaranteed, and free at the point of service.
So what you're saying is that it would abolish insurance companies essentially?
So there is one caveat to that, and that caveat is what's called supplemental health insurance. So what that means is if there's something that Joe Rogan likes that's a medical procedure that isn't scientifically proven yet, but it's still something that you like, there would be private health insurance companies that sell you supplemental insurance, which means on top of everything that you already have through Medicare for All.
So if you were getting like stem cell therapy or something like that.
Well, in an ideal Medicare for All system, and Bernie, believe me, has gone so far above and beyond any criticism. I mean, his thing is airtight. It gives dental, it gives vision, it gets everything. I wouldn't be surprised if under that Medicare for All bill, the stem cells thing is covered. But let's say something like homeopathy, which is like the
Horseshit.
Horseshit, total horseshit.
You want to cover that by insurance?
No, Medicare for All would not cover that because it's so speculative.
So
and it's
private
really,
horseshit insurance?
private horseshit insurance, or plastic surgery, things of that nature. But that's an important point
Is that
because
real? They have private surgery or private insurance for plastic surgery?
No. I'm saying it would be theoretically legal for it under a Medicare for All system because it's supplemental.
How could you have insurance for plastic surgery? Like, I decided my ears are too big.
So maybe the market wouldn't be there, but it would be legally possible is the point. So it doesn't fully ban private insurance, but it does bans what's called duplicative care. So you can't say, hey, I'm an insurance company, I'm going to come in and offer you something that's already covered in full by the single payer system. And the reason why that's there is we don't want you getting ripped off by some charlatan.
I see what you're saying, but it would essentially gut the health insurance industry.
It would make it so that you no longer have health insurance company CEOs making tens of millions of dollars off the backs of people while people die because they can't get health insurance. Yes, it would. And that's a good thing. That's a positive thing.
Now, Joe was curious about the role of insurance companies, and Kyle didn't hold back. Yes, Medicare for All would absolutely gut the private insurance industry, and that's not a downside, that's the point. Ending a system where CEOs make millions while regular people go bankrupt trying to afford insulin is a good thing. That's not radical, that's common sense. Plus, it's not just a theory. Countries like Canada, the UK, and France already have variations of the system. And guess what? They spend less per capita, their people live longer, and nobody goes bankrupt over a broken leg or cancer treatment. Kyle's message was simple. Healthcare isn't about maintaining profits, it's about keeping people alive. And when the government guarantees you everything you need, letting the private market play around with luxury add-ons is totally fine. But no one should die waiting for care because someone in a suit wants a third yacht.
It's a good thing for us, but as a sale, like to sell that.
Well, the thing is, we have this issue where we have like a status quo bias where people think like, well, because it works how it works right now, therefore the idea of addressing it and changing it seems like so overwhelming that we just kind of default to how we have it now. But the problem is, we know as a matter of fact that the way we do it now is the most batshit crazy way you could possibly do it because they research this stuff all the time. They study this stuff all the time. And every single time they look at it, the U.S. comes dead last in the developed world when it comes to healthcare. So there was a recent study from the Commonwealth Fund. They found that they studied 11 different countries. The U.S. is 11th out of 11 when it comes to healthcare. So every other country that does the single payer system, which we were talking about, and there's different versions of it. There's multi-payer, there's single payer, there's private funding there's public funding of private insurance, public funding of public insurance. But bottom line is, any other way you do it is better than the way we do it right now. Okay? And just to be clear, because some people say, well, what about Obamacare? What was Obamacare? Obamacare was originally a Heritage Foundation plan, which is a right-wing think tank. So that was basically Mitt Romney's healthcare bill, Newt Gingrich's healthcare bill. And the whole idea was we're going to force people to buy private insurance.
Right.
And I don't like that idea at all. I dislike that mess. I've been very critical of Obamacare. I think there's a good case to make that it was a step in the right direction because anything was better than the system that we had at the time. But I would say that was just a little step on the path to what we should have, which is a Medicare for all system, where healthcare is a right and not a privilege. We catch up to the rest of the developed world. And again, we should go above and beyond the rest of the world, because like in Canada, I don't think they have dental covered by it.
They don't.
But Bernie's bill does provide dental. So, I think that this is one of those issues where when it's fully explained to people, it's kind of a no-brainer, and you can get people to realize, like, no, the system is totally screwing you right now, and we can fix it.
Kyle called out America's status quo bias, this tendency to assume that just because something's familiar, it must be better or too complicated to change. But when it comes to healthcare, familiarity is literally killing people. Kyle backed it up with facts. According to the Commonwealth Fund, the US ranks dead last out of 11 high-income countries when it comes to overall healthcare performance. Not just once, consistently. And we're not talking about some obscure metric here. We're talking about access to care, equity, outcomes, administrative efficiency, the stuff that actually determines whether people live or die. We spend way more than any other country and we get worse results. He also brought up a great point about Obamacare. A lot of people forget or never knew that it was based on a plan from the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank. It was essentially the Republican alternative to single payer, and Obama adopted it as a compromise. It may have expanded coverage and helped people in the short term, but Kyle's right. It still forces people to buy private insurance and leaves the for-profit structure intact. Kyle's vision, backed by Bernie's plan, is way more ambitious and humane. Medicare for all, including dental, vision, and hearing, with no premiums, deductibles, or copays. That's beyond what even countries like Canada offer. And the best part, it actually saves money over time by cutting out private middlemen and simplifying the system. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.